sorry for cutting in here, but I think you're tapping into something here because we're going. I mean, in some aspects here, I mean, we know what we're doing. We have a plan, but we're also very interested in keeping things open, so to speak, and that's why we're interested in having these kind of sessions and interviews. Not only to push our product, but there is so much for us to learn and grasp as well as we go along. So, and that's something that we want to be transparent with as well. And we have had this discussion many times that I mean, you brought it up yourself with Gaijin, that not being open, and we said early on that definitive characteristics of our game us as a company is that we want to be transparent. We want to develop this product together. I mean, with what will hopefully be supporters and fans, and take everything into consideration. And that's why we wanted to get out fairly early as well with this. Not when we have a half-finished product, but I mean, when we have a good idea, but we're still at a stage where we're open to good ideas and good communications.
Alex is my name, and you have my partner, Legal Frame, or Lars, joining us.
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so I guess we can start by me showing you the current status of the work in progress that we have.
Yeah, we can start with that, and then I'll just be recording all of this, and then I've got some questions that I got from people on my Discord that we can go into afterwards, and you can answer anything that you can, and if you can't answer anything or don't want to answer anything right now, we can wait until later.
Okay,
and then I'll just
sounds fair.
edit.
Yeah, but as you noticed, I mean, we are not at the completely start. We have been doing some work for some time. We have the sort of the main loop of the game. We do understand how it will work, and the main loop of the game is connected to sort of researching, doing different. You've seen like different trees, different research trees.
Mm-hmm.
Then we introduce something in the game called engineering. Engineering means that you can actually play with different tank components by itself. So you can adjust and tune it to make it fit to whatever final aim you have, final goal for your tank. And finally, you have actually the tank design. And this is really where you like from the Lego pieces, you actually you sort of build your tank.
Okay.
So that's the idea. And it's, of course, not all the Lego pieces, all the tank components that can fit to each other. So you have some sort of compatibility between the parts.
Yeah, like you can't mount a giant gun in a small turret or something like that.
Something like this, yes. I mean, it's to be honest. I mean, it's always like a game of balance, right? Because if you want to be extremely historical, I mean, true to the sort of history and reality, then the compatibility shrinks quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sake of the gameplay, maybe we will need to do some simplifications, or because you do want to have that element actually quite actively used by the players.
Yep.
And when you do this, so again, you have the research, you develop different technologies. Technologies give you different tank components. Then you have engineering, where you fuse these tank components to get something that you would like to actually use finally in the design. And then finally, you have the tank design, where from those components you assemble a complete tank.
All right.
When you assemble the tank, I mean, it's sort of represented as Lars, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like 50 to 60 different tank attributes altogether, so split it in different groups. So you have like different protection. You have protection front, protection sides, rear of the hull, of the turret, and so on. You have different attributes for the crew, like crew safety, crew awareness, and so on, crew comfort. You have different attributes for the tank mobility, like the road speed, cross-road speed, obstacle performance, agility, and of course also for the firepower. So when you're done with the building, then you have your tank design, and it comes, of course, at the cost. So you have a cost of materials and man hours, which then you have to watch out, because you can create a good tank, but it will be very expensive for you, right, to produce, and it will be difficult to sell it.
All right.
And then comes sort of the next step. So whom do you sell the tanks? Well, you sell the tanks to the companies, to the countries. So you don't have the companies to deal with it. It's the countries that are actually your customers. And initially, let's say you start playing for the Britons. So initially, you can sell tanks only to the British government. But eventually, you grow as a company. You start to approach other markets like France, USA. I don't know, even Japan. I mean, I didn't know, for example, when I started in this, I didn't know that Japan was operating tanks as early as beginning of the 20th century. So you sell your tanks. It's also like a specific process how the sales goes. I mean, you sort of interactively iterate the country. They have their demands, they have the specification, let's say, of what kind of tank they want. So you have to meet it with the design that you develop. And then, of course, there are other clause that makes it important, like what is the price, what are the kind of deals that you would like to offer besides the tank. And you have to compete with the other companies that are selling tanks. And they sell their own designs, they can adapt the price and so on. We're talking about the IE, the artificial intelligence, not the other place.
Okay.
And so if you're lucky, if you're good, if you understand what you're doing, you manage to sell the tanks. They go to the country's military, and then they are tested. So there's kind of quite a few Tycoon games where you sell something, and then you sort of send it away, and you never get to hear how did it perform, right?
Yeah, you just get the money into your account to use for whatever else, and that's it.
Exactly.
You move on to the next thing.
I mean, exactly. You just hear this, the money going bing, and then you sort of you see the money goes up. This is something we want to avoid. So in our case, the tanks will be tested, and they will be tested on the battlefield, because unfortunately the human history is full of conflict, especially the 20th century. And actually, you're just jumping straight away when you start the game. I mean, you have on the verge of the World War I. So you have wars, you have conflicts. Your tanks will, of course, get their share of those conflicts. They will be participating in different battles. And the battle is, it's a conflict. We can see one conflict as a sort of collection of multiple battles, right? And when they get into the battle, they get tested, how well they perform in the battle. And there's a lot of parameters that play to this, will they succeed or will they fail, or what will actually happen? I mean, it starts both from the let's call it, scenario of the battle. I mean, what kind of landscape it takes place? What is the urbanization level? What is the intensity of the conflict, and so on? But it also depends on the opposing forces. I mean, at the moment, we're planning to have major two sort of opposing forces. You can either end up meeting sort of, tank to tank in a simplified way, or you can meet, tank versus anti-tank warfare. I mean, again, this is like a bit simplification. Reality, it's never a duel. right? I mean, it's formations fighting formations, and we are thinking about this, how to introduce it in the most natural way. There's also a complication that if you read any books about tanks, you get to know that, well, in most cases, tanks are actually not fighting tanks. They're fighting anything else but the tanks. It's very seldom that they get to meet the tanks. But for the sake of the gameplay and interest, I think we will sort of ramp up a bit the frequency of how often one tank can meet another tank.
Are you also going to have them facing off against infantry, or is it going to be purely tank versus tank?
Against the infantry as well. This is pre-equipped with anti-tank weapons, different anti-tanks.
Okay.
It can be anything from the mines to the Molotov cocktail, or to the, I don't know, even like the field artillery, which is not the infantry, but it still was used as an anti-tank weapon often, actually.
Yep.
So, and then when that happens, there will be quite a few calculations done. So at the end of the day, you get to know how did it go for your tank. Depending on some factors, you have sort of statistics. You'll get some numbers. You can understand, was it like the mobility of your tank that actually ultimately failed the design? Was it the protection? Was it both? Or maybe actually you succeeded?
Does it give it to you as sort of like a battle report or something that you can review, or is it more like you observe it yourself and see?
We are playing with different concepts, actually, because we want. I mean, you will get a battle review, right? That's the minimum, but we want to make it as good as possible. So we want to sort of make it really attractive when it comes to seeing how it happens. Because I mean, if you think about this, you as a player, you have spent so much time on doing all this research, engineering, and design and production, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you want to get something back. The tank finally meet its opponents, right? I mean, a battle review is cool, but if you can spice it up with some animations that are actually meaningful animations, that will be even better.
Yeah.
As I said, I mean, we're in the early stage, and this is an example of thing that we want to get the feedback from the community. There's other considerations is unfortunately also involved in this, because a battle review, it's easier and cheaper to do, right? To code and to implement. If you want to have some sort of 3D animations of tank being hit from the side and what's happening, that comes an extra cost that we have to consider.
Yeah, so makes sense.
And also the lead time. So we have to be pretty sure that the community is really willing to see that in the game and see that affecting the final price of the product of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually comes to another point. That this is one of the reasons why we decided to reveal ourselves so early, because we see it as a benefit. We can have an engaged community that can give us the feedback, and based on that, we can really see much more clear the roadmap we're taking.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that, especially with a lot of the people in my community, they'll really appreciate that, because the company I work with, Gaijin, has a tendency to not be as transparent with their roadmap for the game and everything. They are a lot more keeping everything close to their chest, so to say. So I think a lot of people will agree that it's nice to see that you're open to feedback, you're open to letting people make suggestions and just talking directly with the community instead of hiding behind the game.
Exactly. And it was actually one of the things that got us started, because when we realized that, well, it's a cool idea to have a game, to have sort of that angle on the tank theme, not like War Thunder or World of Tanks, which are cool games, driving the tank, but actually designing a tank and driving the business around the tank design. We tried to search and we didn't find a single game like this.
Yeah, because when I saw the email originally, I kind of read through it and I just saw, Tycoon, and then I saw Tank and I was like, okay, that's a little interesting. Let me take a look at the trailer that you sent. I was like, I have not seen anything like this before. It really caught my interest. So I definitely think you have there's a spot there for your game for sure.
Thank you. I mean, we are really hoping for some study. We looked at different games. Their game, like I think there was one guy on our YouTube channel that mentioned like tank mechanic.
Yeah, there's like Tank Mechanic Simulator, but that doesn't even have a release date yet, and it's not quite the same. It's just like it's more of a restoration game than what you're trying to do.
Exactly. It's also a very unique and different perspective on how do you play with the tanks, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really the Tycoon part. I mean, it's as you say, it's a restoration game. And then, of course, the War Thunder, World of Tanks, they are a completely different family. They managed to, I mean, they're different between them, so there's a difference between themselves, but they are really good in making this simulation of the tank crew and driving the tank and all of that warfare. So, yeah, so this is sort of the game in a nutshell. So you have the conflicts, you have the battle check of the tanks, which will affect, I forgot to mention, that will affect the reputation of the tank and you as a company.
Okay.
So if you fail to do the good, repeatedly making tanks that are bad, the reputation of this tank will drop. So it will make it difficult for you to sell it for other countries. Of course, you can adjust the price. You can drop the price, and it will be more attractive. But there's a limit to that as well.
All right.
And what else? From the key features that we're planning to use. Yeah, another cool feature that we've never seen in any game, and we're really keen on that, is called reverse engineering.
Okay, yep. I'm familiar with the term, so I can imagine what it is, but go into it.
So it's in an essence, if you play, say, for Britain, right? You have, of course, you follow the technology path of British tank school. But assume that you manage to get your hands on, A7V is maybe not the best example of the German tank design, but let's say you get your hands on Tiger, right? So if that happens, and there's of course some conditions, for that to happen and some price and so on, but if that happens, that means that you have an opportunity to actually reverse engineer that and get, extract different tank components from Tiger. And again, if the compatibility is okay, then you can really start building the tanks that the world has never seen.
Huh. That's really cool.
So it's you're not limited to sort of study how the Sherman was composed or the Lewis or the T-34, but you can, again, given the compatibility is okay, really make this combo and see how they will perform. And I can tell you, when I was doing this, we started prototyping with because there's a lot of calculation besides this, right? So you don't really need so advanced graphical user interface to do this. We're doing that even in like spreadsheet calculation first and like driving it further. When I did the implementation of this in spreadsheet, and I was so eager to see, okay, so how it will actually play, how it will actually, because I don't know, I never seen these reports, from the historical books.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. So this is another element that we're planning to have. What else that is new? Lars, help me out.
No, I think you covered more or less everything. Did you mention the political aspect there? In regard not only to performance, but potentially how.
Right. Yeah. So you have, of course, the politics. It's always there. So it's like, if you're selling tanks to Germany and it's Second World War, well, good luck selling tanks to allies. That will also be affected. Your decisions, your choices will be traced. It will affect your reputation as a company who's willing to do the deals with you. So that system is also planned. And there's other systems that should make this the main game loop less of repetitive and sort of wake you up. I mean,
All
you'll
right.
have news, you'll have tasks coming from the government, and well, your government or other governments, specific tasks that if you do that, you get, certain bonuses or certain, well, I don't want to reveal everything now, but I mean, you'll be happy if you fulfill the task, but it will, you'll have to make it to work hard to fulfill the tasks. As I said, you'll have news that will sort of perspective what's happening. Like, for example, a new anti-tank rifle has been developed, right, in Germany. So then you can sort of extrapolate to this that, well, there's a high chance that this is the one that I'm going to meet next time I meet German troops in the combat, my tanks. And how that will play if your armor protection is not that well. You have to think about this. And also smaller aspects that are also, as a Tycoon game, they'll be there, the resource management, the staff management, the logistics, how do you actually deliver the tanks? I mean, they are not just going to materialize at the customer by the click on the button.
Yeah, actually, so one of the people was asking in my Discord, there was one of the questions I got about that will you have to deal with the transportation of them? So that answers that for him.
Yeah, we plan to do that system as well. And the materials I mentioned, the quality of the materials that you use for the production, because you have good steel sort of and bad steel that will affect, of course. If you're using the bad steel, that will impact the final product. Let's see. I think I'm sort of covered most of that. You'll have another feature like administrators. So this is a unique characters that can be assigned to different buildings.
Okay.
And they bring historical figures. They will bring certain bonus, maybe penalties. They will be developing along the game. So they can either speed up the production or they can have a breakthrough feature like the perks. If you play if you played Fallout games, you remember the characters have like different perks.
I've never played Fallout specifically, but yeah, I understand how like the perks and stuff work.
So we are discussing to introduce that system as well.
Okay.
And as I said, I mean, we're really sort of now engaged in sort of trying to dissect how far we want to go in the stretch goals, because attacking everything on the fly, of course, is very ambitious.
Yeah.
So we will to do step by step. We'll put some of these features as the stretch goals. I mean, of course. An example of the stretch goal, I think a good example of the stretch goal for the Kickstarter can be like the sandbox mode.
Okay.
I mean, think how cool it is that either you have a possibility to play the historical sequence of events in the world, like when kind of you want to leave that, you want to go through this, you want to be a part of that, or if you have an opportunity to actually go in the sandbox mode where you don't know much what's going to happen. I mean, you know events, the world wars roughly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know who's going to be allied with whom.
I like that because that's similar. Whenever I play Hearts of Iron 4, I like to turn off the historical AI, and I'm a very big fan of, especially in older Tycoon games, I like to play on sim or like that sandbox mode, like you're saying, because it gives you a lot more opportunities to just play around with the game. Because a lot of times in more of like I guess you could say the campaign of it, you don't really have that flexibility to make something that you want to try, but in a sandbox mode you could try that. So that would definitely be something that personally would interest me, and I think it would interest a lot of people.
Yeah, that's exactly sort of the way, and it brings so much replayability to the game. It was like playing old good Civilization. I mean, you never step in the same waters again and again. I mean, it's always new.
Yep. The main question that I got a lot, especially when I shared your video, on my YouTube was, what's the price of the game, roughly? Like, do you have an estimate of what you're aiming for, or do you not have any idea yet?
No, we have an idea. I don't know how accurate the idea is. It is an estimate and it's rough, but we aim at the price level between 25 to 30.
Okay.
So that's of course that will be affected also by how the Kickstarter campaign will do, and what kind of stretch goals we will be able to reach.
Okay. All right, so I've got one more question before I get into some of the ones I got from my viewers. Roughly how long do you estimate until a release, and do you have a plan for like a public alpha or beta test?
The roadmap when it comes to time that we have is that we want to hit Kickstarter around March 2020.
Okay.
So this is these 4 months we were talking about. So we'll be sort of sitting on two chairs. We'll be continue working on the game, and showing more in the upcoming development blog, the movies, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, trying to build the community, engage and get as much feedback as possible along the way. So March, that's the Kickstarter, and then again, I have to refer to what happens at the Kickstarter. So if we get funded, what kind of stretch goals we will meet. I can say for sure that we won't be releasing a game earlier than 1 year after the Kickstarter. That's for sure.
All right.
So it's I would say like late 2021. That estimate. When it comes to releasing a pre-alpha or something, I don't know. I mean, it depends how things go. We would love to release something like this, but that we're still a small team. We're still an indie small team. So we'll do our best. As I said, it's difficult to do a good work on several directions at the same time.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we definitely don't want to release something that we personally unhappy with because of the logics behind that is faulty. I mean, bugs. No bugs, please. I've seen so many guys really and making a huge announcement about the release, and the first thing you see when you open up, it crashes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the worst thing you can think about. And of course, also, as you saw, well, hopefully you saw when I was sharing the screen. I mean, we're trying to have a certain level of quality of the visuals as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also quite a lot of work to be at that level, So we want to release something that is appealing to the player, that is something that he is really immersed in, that it's actually the arm straight Tycoon for the tanks, not for the refrigerators or for something else.
Yep.
And also, I mean, if we're talking factory ground for the Britain, that will look like roughly what you've seen. If we're talking about for France, that will be different.
Okay.
So that's the goal that we have.
So I can get into a few of the questions from my viewers now. So the first one that I have is, will you be able to create like a super heavy or like ultra heavy tank, or is there more of just like the main battle tank aspect, or can you go all the way towards the heavy tank aspect?
Well, I mean, you'll have something called, of course, the map. Mm-hmm. That will fill in as you will sort of fill your tank with the different, components, or load the ammunition and, raise the armor, the protection level, and so on. And of course, the higher the mass, the more impact it has on sort of other properties of the tank. Of course, first comes the mobility, right? You have an aspect of the transportability of the tanks, different like road speed, cross-country speed. Also, the reliability of the when it comes to actually, the category of like, heavy tank or main battle tank, Well, since we think to make this, to give a player the possibility to do custom tanks, it's difficult to really to say which category they will belong.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you can load your design with a lot of things, but it will be the mass will feel it, and the attributes will feel it as well. That's, I think, the most accurate answer to this.
Okay, yeah, because I guess it's some people won't really understand. It's like you're building this entirely from, like you're building it entirely custom. You're not starting with some sort of template. Like you don't get like a tiger hull and then you build it from the tiger hull. It's more like you're building it custom, or is there aspects of like real life tanks?
Yeah, no, actually, the first statement was right. I mean, you still have this building components. You're not completely creating the hull from scratch. You
Okay.
have, let's call it a tiger hull, though it will not be, of course, called the tiger hull. But let's call it a tiger hull. So you have this hull, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the component that through the engineering you can modify. I mean, you can grow a bit of the protection in front, and you can decrease a bit of the protection at the rear, right? You can install on the hull some additional components, we call them modifications,
Okay.
that will modify eventually the of this hull. And the same thing you would do with the turret. You can start with a sort of blueprint of the turret. Well, let's call it T-34. I don't know if that fits well with the Tiger hull, but let's call it T-34. And you also modify that accordingly. Of course, I mean, how much you can modify that will be, I mean, it will be limited. You cannot grow the protection limitless, right? You know, the armor plating or so that is all those compatibility technologies that come and play here. But you start with a blueprint, and this is what you research and that you get as from your research activities in the technology tree.
Okay.
And then you combine those ones if they combine. And the same goes for the guns, the machine guns, for engines, suspension system, and tracks and so on. You're definitely not, you're not as a research, you're not getting like blueprints of the complete tank. That is something that you're not going to get.
Okay. Next question that I had gotten was, what kind of specs do you think will be needed to run the game? Is it more of a lower end, or is it going to be towards the higher end? Or do you not have any idea yet?
I don't have a good. I mean, we will try to optimize as much as we go, but I think you saw it when I was showing part of the movie. There will be what we're trying to do. We're trying to combine both 2D and 3D.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a trick to save us some FPS and so on. So let's say if you take the example of the map, the factory ground that you saw, it's actually pre-rendered 2D.
Okay.
But inside, I mean, the moving objects, the trucks, the tanks that are rolling on the trial range, the characters that are standing and moving, they're actually 3D models.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we'll try to not hit, the highest spec, but how will it go at the end of the day? That's too early to say.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers, because you answered a lot of the questions already, so that pretty much covers what I had. So if there's anything else that you want to add in now.
No, I think we covered most of this. I mean, the only thing I can add is if your viewers would like to really stay tuned, they can also always, of course, subscribe. On our homepage. We'll be trying to post more stuff, both movies and how we. So when it comes to like development blogs, we want. Maybe for some people it won't be interesting, but for some, I think it will be still fun to see, where we started from and where we ended. Like, you start from a complete mock-up, a sketch, like a really sketch of the factory, right? That's what, and this is where we are now. I think that can be interesting to see.
Oh, so yeah, people will definitely find that interesting.
And the same, of course, will go for the for the 3D models and other assets that we're using, and also ideas, how the game is supposed to play. And yeah, we have now the Discord. I mean, we're still in the process of setting it up and learning how to use it, assigning the roles. That one actually, I think I have some roles now that we can see. So the more people join the Discord, the sooner we can have some sessions. Otherwise, they can always welcome to leave questions in the Ask Developer category. And I cannot promise that we'll be answering every day, but we'll be trying to pop by Discord at least a few times a week and give some answers to that.
All right. Yeah, I'll be sure to, whenever I upload this, I'll be sure to throw your Discord link in the description, as well as all the links to your other, like your YouTube and stuff, so that people can go follow you there if they'd like to.
Great. And yeah, I think also when it comes to channel, we will really try to be active there as well. So we'll be also trying to upload as much content as possible. Roughly, what was we aiming, Lars? Was it like once per 2 weeks or something?
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah. That's another target that we have.
Okay.